Hey folks, welcome to this video where we are going to take a quick look at the R programming language. So recently I met someone who is a marine biologist, and I explained that I'm a programmer and I make programming tutorials. And she asked if I knew R programming because apparently that's what marine biologists use. I was then a bit embarrassed to say no, I don't know any R programming, but I thought to myself I'd have a little play. So if you watch my videos before and you know me, you know that my background is mainly in Java backend development, but I've done a ton of stuff over a 20-year career. So I've dabbled in all kinds of tech stuff. So what we're going to do in this video is just to have a quick look at R, get it set up in an environment that's very familiar to most Java developers in Intellij. And so let's take a look at the installation for R first of all. Okay, so here we are in Safari, and this is the R website. So if you look at that website there, I'll put the links in the description, but this is for installation information. So you can download R for Mac OS X. I'm on Mac, but you can do the same thing for Linux and Windows. Okay, so you go here and I just selected the latest one, which is this one here. And then it's just an installation file, which just went ahead and did the installation on my machine. So once that's done, in order to set it up in Intellij, we need to know where it's been installed. So we'll just head over to the terminal and check that. Okay, now in the terminal, we can easily check where R is installed by just typing where R. Okay, and we get this path here. All right, so if we head over to Intellij now. Now in Intellij, in order to work with R, there's quite a nifty plugin. So if we just go and look at plugins. Okay, and it's this plugin here, R language for Intellij. That's the one I used. Maybe there's others as well, but that's the one I used and it's working really well so far. There is something called R Studio, which is probably if you're going to be a long-term kind of proper R developer, you might want to use R Studio. It seems like that's more built for the task, and this is a plugin for Intellij. But for our purposes, we're already familiar with Intellij, so it's quite handy to just use a plugin. So once that's installed, you can go ahead and create a new project. So you can say File, New Project, and from here you can select R. Now when you say Next, you need to select the interpreter. So in my case, I've already got one, but that's because I added it the first time, right? So if you have no interpreter, you can say Add, and then specify the path of the R installation, which you saw earlier with the where command, okay? And that's pretty much that. And then you end up in some sort of project that looks like this. I will check this into GitHub, but there's not going to be much in here. All right, now R has pretty much all the kind of stuff you would expect from a typical programming language, you know, variables, loops, if conditions, all that kind of good stuff. I find a website that's quite useful to learn about R is W3 Schools. So here is the W3 Schools R tutorial, and there's a ton of information here. I find this quite easy to digest. You can just skip through this and you can see you can get loads of information. There's even installation information here, which is probably more reliable than the information I've given you. Let's skip forward. Yeah, you can see all the kind of usual stuff about printing and all that kind of stuff. So let's have a little play. Let's write some R code. So if you want to print something out, we can say print. In fact, a code completion, just show you that as well. You get loads of code completion. I'm assuming this is coming via that plugin. Let's just print something. Okay, and if you press Command Shift Enter on a Mac, that will execute that code. And you can see that it prints what was meant to be hello, but obviously I can't spell. So let's just change that. All right, so that's printing stuff out. And let's just see, for the sake of an example, even though we're not going to go into like loads of basic loops and all that kind of stuff, because you can easily find that online. So if you just run that, you've got a loop, which just prints out 1 to 10. I've run out of terminal space. Okay, so that's a for loop. All right, and let's jump straight into stuff which might be more interesting if you already know how to code, right? So you don't want to see for loops and variables and all that kind of stuff, because as I say, that's easy stuff you can look into. So let's do something that's probably more appropriate for R. Let's plot a graph. So if we execute that code, you can see that's a bit scrunched up, but you can see that that's plotted a graph. Now, literally with one line of code, you've plotted a graph. And in a lot of other languages, it would be a lot more work to do something like that. In Java, I'm not even sure. I'd need to download some library or something to be able to achieve that. Maybe in JavaScript, you could use D3 or some other kind of charting library. But in R, you saw that with almost no work, you've got a graph, okay? So it's easy as that. So let's see if we can plot a specific point. Okay, let's just modify this. So if we give it some X and Y coordinates, and we say something like that. Okay, we enter that. Yeah, you've plotted a specific point. Okay, now let's see if we want to make it a line. So let's go back to what we had here. And we say, actually, we want type equals, I think L should do the trick. So if we do that, now we've now got a line graph, okay, which is pretty cool. We can change the pointer as well. So if I just show you, you can see that in the plotting information here on the W3 Schools website, you've got different kind of pointers you can use. I'm not entirely sure why, maybe to differentiate two different sets of data on the same chart. So I'm not sure if we've got examples here. Now, these are all one set of data, but let's try one of these. So let's say, I don't know, something like 13. All right, so we go back to the code. We can get rid of this type and say PCH equals. Okay, and there you go. You've got some kind of strange looking pointer there. Maybe you can just about see that if I expand that a little bit. I didn't actually zoom. Okay, cool. So you can see you can change the pointer. Okay, now let's see if we want to change the color as well. So let's go back to a line graph. Let's say type R equals L. Okay, and let's tamper with the color. Oops. Okay, and there we have a yellow line. Okay, so you can see how easy it is to manipulate these charts to get exactly the kind of output that you're looking for. Right, let's see if we can plot multiple lines together. So I'm just going to paste an example in, which I think I took from W3 Schools. I can't quite remember now. Let's get rid of this. Okay, let's execute that. So there you can see multiple lines on that chart, so you can sort of compare data. Let's see if we can create a pie chart. Okay, and it's slightly skewed for some strange reason. Maybe it's just this viewer here. I'm sure this is going to be better in RStudio. If you download that and have a play, let me know in the comments if you've used RStudio and if it is indeed a lot better. Okay, that's pretty cool. Now, we're not going to do loads of kind of interesting analysis or anything like that because I'm not a statistician and that's not really the purpose of this particular tutorial. So let's go ahead and look at this website here, which is an R gallery website. And there's loads of examples of interesting plots and graphs and that kind of thing that you can do on this. So we're just going to take this one here. And if you go back to the graph gallery, you can see that there's loads of different charts and stuff that you can choose from. And you can just copy the code and paste it into your project just to see what it looks like. So we're just going to steal this one and have a look. All right, so let's paste that into our editor. All right, and if we execute that, there we go. It's pretty small, but you can see that that's managed to plot a whole bunch of information. So you can see that you can do pretty powerful stuff, maybe slightly akin to what you can do in D3.js, but I haven't really explored this and I'm not really an expert on D3.js either. But you can imagine that pulling in the right libraries and the right kind of bits and bobs that you need, you can do some pretty impressive stuff. Now, I think when I ran this, first of all, I was missing a library, Tidyverse, which I installed. And the way I did that was to go to packages. And if I just search for tidy, you can just tick that and it'll appear. I think that's all it took to install the package, so super easy. Okay, and the other thing that probably I should imagine if you are a R programmer, you're probably going to end up using quite a lot is to model your data. And in fact, you can see a data frame there. So if I just replace this with some other code, you can see a data frame there, which is, just think of it like a table, and you can see a data table, which again, you can think of it like a data frame, but I think with some extra add-ons, you can do some more stuff. So if we just execute that, oops. All right, you can see that we don't have the data table library. So you see we get a warning here and it tells us that it has been detected in a package data table, which doesn't seem to be loaded yet. So we can just say load that, run that again. All right, and see you get a representation of the data. So that's the first data frame and this is the data table below. So I hope that was useful or at least interesting, and maybe it's piqued your interest to go and investigate R more, whether it's useful to you or your project, especially if you're doing any kind of statistical analysis or big data type stuff. And don't forget to absolutely destroy the like button and definitely subscribe if you want to hear more of this kind of unbelievable content, and make sure you hit the subscribe button and let me know in the comments below if it was useful or you want to see more stuff to do with R. All right, so I hope that was useful or interesting at least. Don't forget to absolutely destroy the like button. Definitely hit subscribe if you want to hear more of this kind of unbelievable content. If you want to hear more about R or you want to hear about other programming languages, please let me know in the comments below and I will see what I can do. Thanks for watching.